Hey everybody, it's Chase with AV Pop Culture again, and today we are here to talk about the top 10 digitally shot films on 4K that every collector needs to have in their collection. So pop that tape in, I got you, let's go do this. All right, so I have done my top 25 4Ks in my collection that should be like a foundational thing that I recommend that every 4K or physical media collector consider putting in their collection. If you guys follow me a lot, you know I'm not that big on digitally shot 4Ks or reviewing them. Obviously, if there's new movies that come out that are digitally shot, and I want those films, I'll buy them on 4K because that's the best way to get them. So for me, I think 4K is tailor-made, the restoration to revitalize a lot of old films and give them a whole new life. So that is the bulk of my collection, and I'll put that video at the end for you. But there are digitally shot films that I love. The process is just so much easier. If a film is shot in 4K, 4.5K, 6K, or even 8K, and it never has to go on to a film, and it never has to be processed into a digital intermediate, then processed back out to film, or it never has to set around in a film, in a canister, on a negative for 30, 40 years before being restored, it is so much easier. It should look great. So that should never be a question. That's not a question with these. They should all those digitally shot films should look great because they were always in a digital 4K or better space. So the quality and how they look, unless they just mess something up, should always be fine. But there are those that I watch as a filmmaker that still set apart even in those spaces. And sometimes for me, it's the ones that look more like they were shot on film rather than digital, where they have that beautiful look, but they could still look like they were shot on film or have that sort of film quality to them that is a little bit different. Or they just look so damn pristine, you can't take it for granted. And so we have a list of 10 here. I think it's 10. I actually forgot to grab one. So hold on one second. All right, so we're going to start our list with one that's kind of cheating, which is why I forgot to grab it. I am talking about specifically here the Wrath of the Titans in this new Arrow release on 4K. This film, it was shot partially with a film camera, but it was also shot with a Red Epic camera, and that's a digital camera. So what happens in some of those times is they'll shoot they'll shoot scenes where they're going to do a lot of digital effects. They'll shoot those with the digital camera. That way it takes out a step in the process, right? So this one's kind of cheating. I mean, both of these films look good. I mean, you can tell they're digital though, because they're earlier digital, and a lot of the earlier digital stuff, you can just tell it's digital. And you can tell that with this, but it's an interesting mix. I wanted to include it here. I would love to see Arrow do the original Clash of the Titans and restore it to 4K. And honestly, I think it would probably, visual quality would probably blow these away. But I think this is a nice set, and it's like $40 or under for both of these films. When you take it, that nice slip box, and you got both films in there, separate on 4K, and there is Wrath of the Titans. And I just think it's a nice set for the money, and it was, shot partially in digital. At least Wrath of the Titans was shot partially in digital, and you have this nice set, and I think it's one that it's maybe not a huge draw, but it's like a nice foundational piece to have in your collection. And it's kind of like an honorable mention here, sitting at number 11, because it's kind of in, kind of out. The next one up is the most recent release that I've bought. The newest film that I think is probably the newest film that I own. And this one was shot on an Arri Alexa 35. So this was shot with digital as well. I'm going to do a first watch review on this one here soon. But I am talking about The Fall Guy. This definitely has some filmic qualities to it. And here you see that the inside artwork and everything. So it's a nice set. A lot of people don't realize this was based on a 80s TV show that I loved, and it starred Lee Majors. And it has one of my favorite theme songs ever. Look it up on YouTube. The original opening credits song is done by Lee Majors, and it's called The Unknown Stuntman. And it is great. It is a great theme song. It's right up there with Dukes of Hazzard for me as far as theme songs go. But there's definitely some filmic qualities about this, and I think maybe they went for that a little bit with, because of the callback to the old show. I'm going to get into it more in detail, but I am glad to have this one in my collection, and that artwork is amazing, and all that plays into adding these films into your collection. I haven't had as much time to study this one, but I think it's one that is probably a lot of fun for you to have in your collection that you would have some rewatchability to. By the way, the Arri Alexa camera, you yourself can have that. It's the Arri Alexa 35. The new setup on that runs about $90,000 for that digital camera. There are definitely cheaper ones to be had that are just as good. All right, coming in at number 9 is what I think was the first film to ever shoot in 8K. And they shot this, James Gunn shot this with a Red Weapon 8K. So that resolution is 8,192 by 4,320. And I am talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2. I love the Guardians films. And so, it's a no-brainer. I had to own all of them right away. I love the 80s vibe to them. I love Chris Pratt. I'm a huge Chris Pratt fan. I just love everything about his vibe. And I think he's cool as Star-Lord. And, of course, the music, the 80s vibe. But then this one, you have Kurt Russell playing his father. I mean, come on, man. This movie is really good. You got Stallone in here making an appearance and getting into the Marvel Universe. This is a fun movie. I really like all 3 Guardians movies. This was shot in 8K. And that Red Weapon 8K camera right now, at the time, it was about $70,000 or so. You can now get one. You can get a package for about $8,000. Depending on how used it is, a little more, a little less. But imagine how much that has gone down. And this came out in 2016, 2017. So just in 7-8 years, the price changed that much on digital cameras. Fun movie. I highly recommend the Guardians films for anybody's collection. All right. Coming up next is... What number are we at here? Oh, number 8. We are at Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and this is just a cool slip box that I got from Blockbuster Box Sets. And his stuff will hold like a steel book or a standard release with a slip. And this movie, I mean, it has some digital telltales in it, especially with the effects, because it gives some of the effects a little bit of a hard edge. Then there are other times it is very what I call filmic, and that's a word you're going to hear from me quite a bit. And I mean, people pan this, it still made $214 million worldwide off of an $84 million budget or something. I think it was. I didn't write it down. So I mean, it still made money, and it's Ghostbusters. It's iconic. These characters playing these guys playing these characters 40 some odd years later. Honestly think it would be better if it had focused on them more. It had too many storyline threads, but Ghostbusters stuff is a must own. I have talked about this when I did a review of this film. If you want to check that out, this one was shot with the Arri Alexa Mini, which is a 4.5K camera. So you're gonna get like the cinema 4K resolution, which is like 4092 something, and that which is higher than your Ultra HD discs, which are what 3160 or 3120 by 2160. I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head. But what they shoot it, the 4K that they shoot it in is higher than the 4K Ultra HD discs. But you can get this camera right now. This one's still pretty expensive. I think this one, I want to say, is around $30,000 for this camera, and it's being used a lot here lately. Of course, you have to have everything else with it, but this is a, you got to have Ghostbusters in your collection, and getting this little extra slip box just was extra sweet for me. All right, coming up next are two that I'm going to do together because they were shot with the same cameras, and they were kind of shot one right after the other. And to me, these are sort of like nailing the landing. These are this is where Marvel, aside from like Guardians 3, this is where Marvel pretty much ended. And I'm talking about Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Coming in here at, what is it, 10, 9, 8, at 7 and 6. No, 6 and 5, I think. I'll put it up here. So Infinity War is interesting because it was the first one, and I made a little note. It was the first one to shoot with 6K, and they shot it with an Arri Alexa IMAX camera, 6K IMAX camera. And then they shot Endgame with the same cameras. So that's why I kind of put them in here together. They're very much going to have the same look. And if you're only going to own a couple of Marvel movies, I recommend owning the Guardians series, the first Iron Man, and these two. Because I think those are the best ones. I enjoy these the most. Endgame is actually pretty far down, though, away from Infinity War, I think, is the superior of these two films. But if you're building a foundational collection and you're into you have a passing interest into Marvel at all, superhero movies at all, these are films that you have to have in your collection. They do have some digital telltales, and there's a lot of green screen work and all that, so it catered itself to shooting digital. And maybe I think they start to, especially by Endgame, they start to go way too overboard with it. Like, if you go back and watch the original Iron Man, he's in a photorealistic, like, heavy metal suit that they told him if he fell, don't catch yourself because you'll break your arms because it's so heavy. But it looked so much better than the damn CGI suit. That's the problem I have with digital. When they start to get in a digital space, they just start throwing CGI and over CGIing everything, and it loses so much charm, so much realism. Like, suddenly Iron Man's suit just looks so fake and thin and everything. It's like, what the hell is that stopping? Where if you go back and watch the original movie, you're like, oh yeah, that's some serious shit right there. But at the same time, I think these are two must-own digital films. If you are into 4Ks and digital 4Ks, you got to have Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. All right. Next up on the list is, here we go. I had it over here. This one I just talked about in another video, and I'm talking about, I think this is also 2017's It. This is It Chapter 1 specifically. It Chapter 2, I own it. I didn't even bother getting a 4K. I have a Blu-ray of it, and I'm not in a rush to upgrade it because I don't care for that movie that much. But this one, It Chapter 1, reset the kids in the 80s. That was awesome for me. Super cinematic shots just in the beginning with the scene with Georgie and with Pennywise in the storm drain. Holy hell. That looks so amazing. This one was shot with also an Arri Alexa Mini camera. So like that's one that's like pretty popular out there. And I just think it's a really good movie. It was a really good start. It really bummed me out. Again, though, see, they got into a digital space And in part 2, instead of trying to do something realistic and creative and much more interesting with the ending, they just throw a huge CGI spider and a big CGI clown face on the spider, and it's just this big super fake looking CGI fight. And again, when you shoot digital, I just feel like that's a trap that gets fallen into. It's like, oh, well, it's all in a digital space. It'll be easy to add those digital CGI effects to it and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you shot on film, they'd be a hell of a lot more careful about having to do so much of that. Maybe you'd get more creative and you try to do a little bit more practically. And I mean, to that end, I said this in another video, I'm not sure which one you're going to see first. I prefer the ending to the original movie, even though it has bad TV movie miniseries effects for the spider. They try to minimize it. They show cool old school like horror movie shadow work, like you see the shadows of what's happening. I just think they had so much potential with part 2, and they let it go away because they shot digitally and they fell into the digital trap of too much CGI, too much digital space. But part 1 is hellaciously cinematic. I absolutely love it. This one it had me rocking. So much potential. It's a great horror movie. Even as a standalone, I think it's one that you got to have in your collection. All right, next up, we are going back to Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters Afterlife. And this movie is older, obviously, by a few years than Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And I actually think it looks a little better for it. This one was shot with the Arri Alexa LF. So not the Mini, although they both shoot in 4.5K. This was a much more expensive camera. It was like $70,000, $80,000, I believe, at the time. And there's just a lot more. It has more cinematic look to it. It has more filmic look. I think of like the moments when there are these wide shots and it shows Ecto-1 driving and they're driving and there's dust kicking up and stuff, and then the light is starting to fail and it's getting darker. It looks so much better. And when you think about that, so a lot of digital cameras claim to have like 14 stops or more of dynamic range, and most film is like really 12. In theory, it goes to 16 stops. It can go up to 16 stops on film, but in theory, the more actual practical use range is around 12 to 13 stops, maybe 14 stops of dynamic range. But the little particles in film, the little like silver particles that cause grain and stuff, they are much more capable of dealing with overexposure than digital is. And so they maintain way more detail. So you might say that in theory, digital cameras might have some more dynamic stops of dynamic range, so more latitude between the darks and the lights, but they tend to lose more detail in, like, especially when things get very bright and overexposed. It's hard to use footage from. I mean, things get blown out, as we say. So whites just lose all detail and they just look bright. And the contrast between the two gets harsh, and that's where you get the digital look, whereas film is a much more gradual progression from that really bright to the darkness, and it can hold on to more detail a lot of times, especially in the light spots, than digital can. And with digital, that's where you'll get like blocking with digital, and you really just blown out highlights that are unusable. And so, yeah, they might say, well, this camera has more dynamic range, more stops of latitude than film could get. And it's like, yeah, but if none of that has any detail, it's useless. So film preserves a lot more detail. That's why when you are watching a really good restored film shot on that was shot on 35 millimeter, and somebody restored it from the negative, it looks so fantastic. It's got so much damn detail because it can preserve so much more detail in different conditions than digital can. But this one has moments where it looks very filmic, and I really enjoy it. And it's Ghostbusters. You have to own all the Ghostbusters movies. I'm a Ghostbusters fan. The ending of this one, where they're all there together and they have the ghost of Harold Ramis as Egon Spengler, worth the price of admission to me. You can say it's fan service or whatever. It was a proper goodbye, and I love this movie. Love might be a little strong. I really like this movie. I do love the scene in the Walmart with Paul Rudd and the ending scene, but it's kind of slow to start off with, but I do enjoy the movie. All right, so the next one up has a little bit of controversy to it, because in all of my research, it does have, like, I saw something that said there was possibly a couple of scenes that were going to use film, or maybe did use film, but what I found from the cinematographer himself, the director of photography, he talked about 3 different digital cameras that they used, and that's what I primarily found. And I am talking about Kong Skull Island. Now, of all of those movies, like the new King Kongs and the new Godzillas and the MonsterVerse and all of that, this movie is by far my favorite. This is a must own. This feels like an Indiana Jones film meets like Journey to the Center of the Earth meets a King Kong film. And this movie I love. Just loads of rewatchability. I'm telling you, I put it on. I felt like I was watching Indiana Jones and Journey to the Center of the Earth, like I said, mixed together with a King Kong film. It's like, oh my God, this has it all. I love it. And there are scenes where you see King Kong and his fur. Man, it looks so damn real, so damn good. Very filmic. You can tell when it's digital, especially like with water and the way it looks. You can tell it's a digital creation shot on digital on some stuff. But it still looks fantastic. I love this film. No complaints from me. It was shot with a combination of an Arri Alexa XT Plus digital camera, a Red Dragon, so a red camera, and a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. Now, that's just a little 4K camera, almost disposable. It would have cost them about $2,000. So to them, it was disposable. They put those in a lot of action sequences where cameras might get tore up. So according to the director of photography, maybe 10% even of what you see on screen, maybe a little bit more, was actually shot with a Blackmagic Pocket camera. They did a fabulous job blending them together. It looks so good. And this movie, like, I feel like all the ones after this have been nowhere near as good as this one. And while I did enjoy them, this one is just set apart. So I think it's a must for your collection. If you're buying digital 4Ks, or digitally shot 4Ks, and you're building a 4K collection, Kong Skull Island, you got to have it. All right, we got a couple of left, and this one is one that I got earlier this year, and I am talking about Crimson Peak here at number 2. This big, beautiful box set by Arrow Video of Guillermo del Toro's Gothic Haunted House movie. This set is insane. It is just so decadent. It is perfect for this. It's kind of odd how they do this, and like the book has a slip cover, but the movie is kind of like in there. But like I said, this is a Gothic Haunted House movie, and a lot of people don't realize that this was shot digitally. And that's why it didn't make my list of 25 4Ks that every collector should have in their collection, building a collection, because those were all things that were shot on film. Here's the book. I think it's funny that the hard case book, got a slipcover, but the movie itself is just kind of back there in the back. That's kind of weird with this set, but the set is super nice. This film was shot with an Arri Alexa XT. And what's important about that is the XT has like a 4:3 type sort of ratio. The way it's set up is to mimic super 35 millimeter film cameras. And if you grew up in like the 80s and 90s, especially to the mid late 90s, but all those big movies you saw in the 80s, and most movies now, if they shoot with film, Shot with Super 35 millimeter because it was easier to use. Like Top Gun was one of the first ones that really used a lot because they put the Super 35 millimeter cameras into the cockpits. So Super 35 millimeter cameras were smaller. They do crop in a little bit, but they look amazing when you put anamorphic lenses on them that shoots wide, because you have this kind of cropped in look, but then it gives a big wide shot. And it's what you got used to seeing if you watched movies through the 80s and 90s. So then when you watch this and it's shot with a digital camera that used those same kind of lenses, because he used Zeiss Master Prime lenses, which is like super speeds, which is what like Kubrick used to shoot The Shining. And so you combine those type of lenses with a digital camera that is made to set up like a film camera that you're used to seeing, so it gives a look that you're used to seeing. We're not used to seeing full frame. All those movies were shot with Super 35. You don't realize it isn't shot with film, and a lot of people didn't realize it wasn't shot with film. And it was shot in 4.5K with that Arri Alexa XT, and also claimed to have 14 stops of dynamic range. And I think 4K on that one is 4.5K. I think that's when that's like cinema 4K. So that's 4096 resolution by 2636 or 2436. I'm trying to remember numbers off my head. I didn't write everything down. But this thing looks beautiful. I mean, it is beautiful. And then the colors in this 4K output of this, I mean, it should look good, because even though it was originally released to the theaters in a 2K cinema package, right? Because theaters couldn't show 4K. And but now we get this boost up in the resolution, but it was always there. It was always available. So you can just go back and put it back out. Those colors pop. It just absolutely looks amazing. It adds so much to this. It's a must for your collection. A great job by Arrow Video. Nice gothic, creepy. It's a haunted house story. It's a horror movie. It's a gothic horror love story. And it comes in here at number 2. And that leaves one that I've talked about on several lists and different things, reviews lately. It's one that if I didn't know better, if I had not worked in film and I had not shot films and stuff like that, I would have 100% guessed this was shot on film. It looks extraordinarily filmic, and it doesn't have like a bunch of telltale markers of digital. Not at all. It was beautifully done, beautifully shot. I'm talking about Robert Eggers' The Witch. It is fantastically shot. It looks great. It was shot with an Arri Alexa Classic Plus that, again, has that same Super 35 millimeter frame up as this camera. The one that this one with Crimson Peak, you can get this camera now for around $8,000. This camera that they shot The Witch with, the Arri Alexa Classic Plus, you can get you can get like a whole package with this camera, like all the cards, everything for digital image transfer, for about $5,000, which is less than like my Canon cinema cameras. So you could get that and shoot The Witch, but hey, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not just it's not the camera. The camera will not make it look like a film. You have to light correctly, and in this, he really didn't have he definitely, using a digital camera that lets in a lot of light was smart, because he was trying to shoot everything with natural light, candlelight, sunlight, moonlight, firelight, all that kind of stuff. Looks fantastic. And in that way, he was also able to avoid things being blown out so much. It looks like they tried to shoot on mostly cloudy, overcast days, which is also great. Now, he could have shot on some sunnier days, and then they tried to bring that down in post too, to match it. And that would allow him to get away with muting those blown out highlights that digital can do sometimes. But I just don't see a lot of digital telltales on this. This looks super filmic. It has beautiful shots, beautiful cinematography, maybe holds on to some shots too long. but it is absolutely fantastically shot. I can't wait to watch some of the other movies of his. This was my first Eggers movie. I haven't seen The Lighthouse. I haven't seen The Northman. I know he's doing Nosferatu. I'm a little more concerned about Nosferatu now. I was so excited. I'm a little worried about Eggers maybe making it too slow, to like taking it a wrong direction. I want a good solid telling of Nosferatu. My fingers are crossed because he's talented. This thing looks amazing, and it is a must. I think even like I have issues with the movie, I still think it's a must own. So The Witch comes in at number 1. So that is my list. If you are building a collection, if you're new to collecting, if you are a veteran collector, whatever, and you are looking for stuff that is newer, that's shot digitally, that looks great, that maybe doesn't look overly digital and artificial, and you want a good mix, not just things that are restored from film, these are a good place to start. I would add these to anyone's collection. I enjoy the films. That has to count first and foremost. You got to like the films. These are good films. I enjoy them. I like having them in my collection, and they look amazing. So they're a hell of a place to start. But let me know, what are some of your favorite digitally shot movies that are out here on 4K? It's not always as easy to tell, especially if you didn't do it, you don't work in cinematography and things like that. But let me know what you think, and I hope you've enjoyed this list. And please, if you have, like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Consider joining the channel. You can follow the link to my Patreon down below, or you can join here on YouTube. You can become part of the Pop Culture Friends family, our Pop Culture icon. You can see some of the behind the scenes of my filmmaking with digital cameras. Like, I use 4K cinema and digital cameras. I couldn't afford to shoot with film. You can see all that kind of stuff. You can see some fun short films that I've made in 48-hour film competitions, 72-hour film races. They have won competitions, different kinds of stuff, all kinds of things, but you don't have to do any of that to hang around here and be part of all this. Just like, subscribe, ring that bell, spread the word, help get the pop culture family out there. I really do appreciate it so much. I have so much fun. And until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.
I know.